because every guest is different from me. Every guest has a special connection. So the idea now with this episode is to help show you how I take away information from certain things that I listen to and how I plan to apply it in my life. Because knowledge without action is just knowledge. Knowledge, when applied correctly in our lives and is yielded towards something like a purpose, an intention toward doing something, then it becomes powerful. This is Your Purposeful Life, and I'm your host, Adrian Starks. I'm a speaker, podcaster, narrator, writer, and entrepreneur. On this podcast, we're taking a different approach to the understanding of purpose because it's not a one-size-fits-all. There will be a variety of guests expressing their purpose through the human mess we call the human journey. These conversations will guide you to a better awareness and understanding of your unique purpose in the daily life of mistakes, changes, and challenges, and how to put that purpose into action, bringing you more experiences of success, fulfillment, and achievement on your terms. Let's go on this journey of purpose together. Hey everyone, welcome back to Your Purposeful Life podcast, and I'm your host, Adrian Starks, and I'm excited today because this is a special one. Episode 114, it's just me and you. I'm going to be reflecting on the purpose of these conversations between my last three guests of the 2022 season. That is Cathy Nesbitt, Lesley Logan, and Kevin McShann. Before I get into this reflection of the episodes, I want to share with you why I'm doing this. The reason why I'm doing this is because knowledge is just knowledge. When we hear things on the radio, on podcasts, on TV, or on the news or social media, it's just information. And the problem with our society right now is that we got way too much information and we don't know what to do with it. So the idea now with this episode is to help show you how I take away information from certain things that I listen to and how I plan to apply it in my life. Because knowledge without action is just knowledge. Knowledge, when applied correctly in our lives and is yielded towards something like a purpose, an intention toward doing something, then it becomes powerful. So today we're going to become more powerful in our way of being by looking at some of these episodes and taking them apart a little bit at a time. Now, what I would like for you to do too is when you watch this video, or when you hear this podcast, I want you to reach out and comment on what were your takeaways from the episodes and what you plan to do to make some changes in your life for the 2023 season coming up, because it's right around the corner, y'all. Can you believe it? Before we get into this idea of the episodes, I want you to make sure that you have this podcast downloaded into your favorite podcast platform of choice. Make sure you like, comment, and share this podcast, the episodes with people that you know. Let's spread the word about the YPL community. Make sure you go to our website, yourpurposeful.life. Scroll down that page and join the YPL community, as I'll have a lot of good things coming out. Every week, I'll have some tips, some action steps for you. And I also will be revealing to you some sneak ideas about the next guest coming up, which will be very fun. And more importantly, it just allows you to be a part of something that you can come to in times of need, in times of encouragement, or when you have questions. So make sure you go ahead and join that YPL community, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, like it, and share it with people that you know. Let's get the word out. And for the people that have been doing that, I greatly appreciate all my listeners, all my supporters out there. We're doing great things, and I really am grateful for that. Now let's get into the ideas of these episodes. As I mentioned before, I want to reflect on what they meant to me, because every guest is different from me. Every guest has a special connection. My first guest was Cathy Nesbitt. Cathy Nesbitt is a worm advocate, and she's a laughter and wellness specialist. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going off the top of my head. I don't have any notes here. Well, I got some notes, but I'm not going to be reading from my notes. I want to do this from the heart because it makes more sense to me to be open about what I feel about these guests and what I've learned. So you're going to hear some pauses and some delays a little bit, and that's all right. I'm in my actual form here, and I'm just being real with you. So with Cathy Nesbitt, the first thing that stood out to me was that she was a worm advocate. That's why I wanted her on the show, because I don't really come across many people these days who talk about worms. And more importantly, Cathy talked about worm composting and how that is going to be helpful to reducing landfill waste out there. I don't know if you all know this, but right now, most of our planet is being destroyed to build new buildings, and the landfills are just filling with waste because as a population, we're tripling, we're increasing, but the space of land is decreasing. So that means more mess. So Cathy has this idea of helping us reduce the mess. She's from Toronto, Canada, and up there's a lot of people. And so she wanted to find out how could she help people create their own green thumb. So with this episode, she talked about worm composting and how you can use this in your trash at home and how there's certain worms that create oxygen, which actually take away the bad scent of the trash. So you're getting a 2-for-1. You're getting someone that's helping you compost your trash for you so that you don't create more waste. And 2, is helping you to reduce the smell. And I think during the holidays, a lot of us probably had a lot of smells in our trash can from food. So that is very helpful to know about how we can contribute to the planet, at the same time reduce waste. Cathy talked about 4 specific type of worms that will do this. Now, what I learned is that you cannot go out in your backyard and just get a regular earthworm out of the ground because you're going to get the smoke from them. They're not going to do anything for you because that's not their function. They're structured a different way. And to find out more about what specific type of worms Cathy was talking about, I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode with Cathy Nesbitt. And I believe that is going to be episode 111. So go back and listen to that episode. Feel free to reach out to Cathy. Her notes are going to be in the show notes of that podcast. Another thing I learned about Cathy was the laughter and wellness perspective. Now, Cathy recently won the Women's Catalyst of Change Award in 2022. That says a lot about her. But Cathy really promotes laughter in our lives. She talks about laughter being medicine for us and how it really helps to decrease the stress levels in our body. Now, with everything going on around the world, and especially with inflation rates, prices going up, we still have a lot of things going on with COVID and other illnesses that are arising. We also have this crazy weather that's happening where it's causing a lot of people not to be able to travel as far as they want to. There's tons of things that are keeping us in a high stress state, which is chronic stress. And what Cathy talks about is finding ways in our life to introduce laughter. And it's nothing wrong with laughing and having some fun, because laughter actually helps us to decrease the cortisol levels, which decreases the stress in our bodies. And it also helps us to release this dopamine effect, which is a hormone released by the brain that makes us feel good about ourselves. And there are some other things Cathy talks about too that I want you to go back and listen to in that episode. But what I learned from Cathy was that laughter is a way of life, and we have a right to laugh. So each day I want to find out how I can make myself laugh or find something to laugh about, because that is going to help me reduce my stress levels. Also, what I learned from Cathy is that I have every right to be able to help this planet out the best way that I can. So how can I reduce my waste? Maybe using less bottles, right? A lot of us, we get bottles of water, especially this time of the year with things going on. People want to just stock up on things. Maybe not stock up so much on water bottles that are plastic. Get some that are in glass, or even buy water filters and use that to continue to fill other water bottles that you may have at home instead of purchasing more. This is my way of just helping the planet. So with Cathy, I learned laughter is medicine, and I need to incorporate that in my life. And if I get stressed out, what can I laugh about? What can I feel good about? And then 2, how can I reduce my waste each day? Maybe not buy this bottle of water. Maybe not do this. Or maybe try something different in my home. And that's what I learned from the episode with Cathy. And of course, Cathy and I, we laughed, we joked, we had a great time. And one of my favorite parts of the episode was when she talked about worm poo and how she teaches this in the school. And the kids, when they heard worm poo, they went, ooh. But when she said that, how about black gold? They went, oh. And that rephrasing helped the kids realize how important worm composting is. It's a value to us. It's a value to our planet. So thank you so much, Cathy, for that. As we move into the next person now, episode 112 with Lesley Logan. Lesley is a certified Pilates instructor. She's a founder of onlinepilatesclasses.com. And Lesley and I, from the get-go, what can I say? We started out wearing the same sweater. And this was not planned. It was not planned. You have to go in and check that episode out. That's episode 112. And right off, I could tell that Lesley and I, we had a synergy. We both come from that background of health and wellness. And I realized that she had a passion for what she was doing. But more importantly, what struck me about Lesley was her idea of self-care isn't selfish. That's what really stood out to me. So how many of you out here have been shamed for taking care of yourself? We talk about body shaming a lot. We talk about shaming other people, but no one really talks about the people that are being shamed for taking care of themselves and dating themselves and being out there and being okay with and being comfortable with being who they are as they are. So self-care isn't selfish. When you take care of you, you can actually have the energy to take care of others. So I'm jumping right into what I learned from Lesley about self-care isn't selfish. Lesley also shared to me her idea of perfectionism. Being perfect is boring. She shared her story of coming from Lodi, California. I hope I pronounced that correctly for my people from Lodi. If I didn't, just reach out to me. She talks about growing up in a neighborhood where she thought about all these people being perfect, but in reality, they were not. They were just people that were just plain boring. And she realized that it wasn't that she couldn't fit in, it's that she didn't need to fit in. So she found herself traveling. Once she was able to get out of school and leave, she found herself going to LA, where, I'm going to say this, Pilates found her. And she learned about the power of Pilates, and she began to use that in her life. And she became in such high demand that she was able to leave her day job and to move into that full time and to help people across the world, helping people that live next to LeBron James. You got to go and hear that story about that one. But more importantly, she's also sharing her knowledge of what it is to be flexible with people around the world. And this flexibility has more than just a physical meaning. It's a flexibility of the mind and how you feel about yourself, and allowing yourself some grace once in a while, allowing yourself the opportunity to be happy, allowing yourself to do the things that you need to do to take care of you first, because that's part of our mental health. And what's happening with a lot of us is that it's not people that's driving us crazy, it's us that's driving us crazy. And we're not allowing ourselves to sit and to take care of ourselves physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And when we don't do that, problems happen. I'm going to bring this up, and much condolences to this man's family, because he was such a light. And this was the dancer and DJ Twitch. A lot of you may know him. He was the DJ on Ellen DeGeneres' show. There was so much light in him, so much love, so much passion, but no one knew that he was hurting behind. And this is what mental health does to us. We can put on a great show. We can show people that side of us that we want them to see. But deep down, there's a side of us that may be going through something that we may need some help on. And this is why I was really passionate about Lesley talking about mental health and self-care isn't selfish. When we don't take care of ourselves, there is a hole inside of us that cannot be filled by anyone else. You can try to put that responsibility on other people. And the problem that's going to happen is that you're not going to be able to fill it because you're expecting someone else to do it for you. And you're going to get resentful toward them. And then you're going to put more pressure on them to be perfect, and they're not perfect, and they're going to have resentment toward you. And this is what's happening with a lot of relationships out here. So with this episode, Lesley taught me a lot about how we need to just learn to be ourselves. And that's hard to do because a lot of us don't know ourselves. So it's time to start dating yourself again. Asking yourself, what do you like to do? What would you like to do this weekend? What would you want? Where would you want to go next week or next month or next year? Start asking yourself questions directly and start validating you first, not letting other people validate you, but validate yourself. And Lesley showed me that it's okay to not be perfect, to make mistakes, to say, hey, you know what? I messed up on this. I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't know that. How many of you have been around people they think they know everything? That's perfectionism syndrome that they have. They don't know everything. And if they do, they're silly. So I'm learning now to drop the perfectionism. That's why in this podcast today, I don't have all my notes in front of me. I'm going off the top of my head. And I'm really serious about this. I'm not going off of some structure. I'm just speaking from the heart because I'm dropping the perfectionism. And who knows? Maybe this will be something that people will really like. I don't know. But I'm opening up and I'm sharing my truth with you all today in a way that's very organic. So Lesley, I want to thank you for helping me see that perfectionism is boring and that self-care isn't selfish. Also, you showed me about the power of Pilates and how when we don't have the balance, you can have too much strength and that can lead to injuries, or you can have too much flexibility and that can lead to dislocations. So what Lesley talked about with Pilates was that it is a balance of the core and helping your body be both strong and flexible, that happy medium. And with Pilates, she also shared this history behind it, which I'm not going to share here in this episode because I want you to go and listen to what she talked about because I cannot do it justice here. Her passion is unrivaled for this. But she talks about the history of Pilates and women. And I was shocked was she told me something that I did not know. And honestly, I'm so glad it has changed. But Pilates is something now that I'm going to incorporate more into my life. And also, each day I'm planning on stretching more and not necessarily focusing on strength, but focusing on my core. And that helps me become more balanced. And I'm going to use that more in my life. So in my conversations, I'm going to say, how can I be more neutral in this? How can I be more flexible? How can I not be perfect? How can I not, and try not to have the last word? So with Lesley, I'm really excited to take on this new journey of dropping perfection and grabbing onto something much better. That is just being flexible. Thank you, Lesley, for that, for your story, for your mental health information, because it really helped me out a lot. And I think that we all need it in this day and time because mental health is serious. And once again, condolences to Twitch's family, and he will be greatly missed, but his legacy will truly live on. Last but not least, episode 113 with Kevin McShann. Kevin is a disability and inclusion expert. But one thing about Kevin that really struck me was that he had this phrase that said, do not let your disability define your limitations. Now, this is very strong coming from someone who has spastic quadriplegia. And at the age of 9, from what Kevin told me about his story, was that his doctor basically said, hey, there's nothing more that we can do here. We've done all the surgeries. You're going to be wheelchair bound. What's interesting also is that Kevin has a twin. And Kevin's twin was able to grow out of this spastic quadriplegia, but Kevin wasn't. But what I found interesting throughout the whole conversation is that it wasn't that Kevin grew out of it. Kevin grew into it, and he knew how to take it on, and he learned how to take it on to champion for others. And he grew forward with it. And now he helps advocate other people who have disabilities. And he's doing this in the workplaces. How many of you right now, when you look at your workplaces, see anyone that's disabled there? You know, it's going to take you a minute probably to find them. And this is what Kevin's talking about. You don't see them often. But yet, people with disabilities have so much to offer. And you cannot judge a book by its cover, because within that cover, behind those covers, there's so much value. And what Kevin teaches is that with this inclusion of people with disabilities, this could actually help improve your company. That could be that one person that has the solution to your problems, but you're overlooking them because they may be disabled. Shame. So we need to change how we see people and how we treat them. And one thing that I learned when I was talking with Kevin was that growing up as a child, you remember the old folks, the older generation, when they see someone that was disabled, they say, oh, bless their heart, bless their soul. You know, they had that Southern accent. I was born and raised in the South. So when we look at it now, it's not about blessing them. It's about being encouraged by them. Don't feel sorry for them. Why would you do that? They don't feel sorry for themselves. They're actually doing the best that they can with what they have. That's the important thing to know. What I'm learning now is that people with disabilities, I've always respected them, but now I have a higher level of respect, because what Kevin showed me was that, wow, there are a lot of hurdles they have to go through, a lot of challenges, a lot of doors that are closed. And Kevin shared a lot of these doors that were closed for him that I would encourage you to go and listen to on episode 113. But Kevin talked about limitations. And one thing that I want to discuss with us is that you may not be disabled physically, but a lot of us are disabled mentally. We limit ourselves in how we see ourselves. We can't go very far because we're boxed in. And it reminds me of Jim Quick. Jim Quick is a great speaker and brain specialist, and he talks about the power of the brain and the body and how they connect together. And he has a phrase, and it goes like this: if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. And that reminds me a lot of what Kevin was talking about. You know, his parents showed him that you can do the best with what you have. This is not going to stop you. Work with it, and you can move beyond it. And Kevin did. It also reminds me of my trip that I took back in 2018 to Florence, Italy. I'm going to share it quickly with you, but if you really want to hear more about this trip, I do have a podcast episode back in the first season, and I called it Thinking Outside the Box. And I explained this trip in more detail. But on this trip, I ended up meeting my now mentor, Mr. Matthew Knowles. And if you don't know who Matthew Knowles is, he's the father of Beyonce and Solange. When I met Mr. Knowles in Florence, Italy in 2018, it was with a small group of entrepreneurs and business owners and artists. And he lectured to us about the power of thinking outside the box. And there was this empty box that was sitting next to him the whole entire time he was talking to us. It was driving me crazy. I didn't know why he had an empty box there. But he demonstrated to us what happens when you get inside that box. And I talk about that in the episode called Thinking Outside the Box. So to hear more about that one, just go and listen to that episode. That's in the first season. But to get back to Kevin here, when I was thinking about doing this episode, I thought about those things regarding Kevin. Thinking outside the box, not having this boxed in thinking, and not allowing your disability, whether it be a physical or mental, stop you from moving forward and growing forward in your life and making changes. Kevin is truly a champion of the disabled. But more importantly, I think he's a champion for human people in general who don't believe in themselves or who have a hard time honoring themselves. And Kevin shared also a passion with me for football. He and I talked about our favorite, well, his favorite football team, it ain't mine. But that football team actually had a running back that was my favorite. And I'm not going to share that with you. Go and listen to episode 113 to hear about that conversation between Kevin and I in football. And that's another passion that Kevin has is football and sports commentating. And with all these three guests, I wanted to shed light on how they are human and how they have all figured out ways to create a purpose within this human mess, which is basically just changes and challenges that sometimes we don't quite understand. But yet they found a way to create a purpose, and they're sharing that purpose with other people. And that is where power comes from. As I mentioned earlier before, knowledge is just knowledge, but when applied, it's powerful. And each person has demonstrated to me that they are living their purposeful life because they are helping others. They're sharing their energy with the world. And I couldn't be more proud of them. And I want you all to believe in yourselves more, to listen to those 3 episodes, to find out what were your takeaways, what were your points that you appreciated, and to share those with me through social media, to reach out to me and let me know if you want to have another guest back on, to let me know if you have a question for our guest on the show. I'm pretty sure they would love to answer it. And if you have a guest that resonates with you, to go and follow them on social media, to reach out to them, to support them as they continue on with their quest of purpose throughout this planet. Because once again, we cannot ascend by ourselves. We ascend together. I'm excited for the 2023 year coming up. There's a lot of new guests on board, a lot of new episodes, and I am ready to share them with you. I want to thank you all for your support to the Your Purposeful Life podcast, to the community, and we are on the rise of growing and expanding. And I want you to continue to spread the message, share the love, and share your purpose. Thank you all again for your support, and share this episode with everyone that you know. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Have a joyous and purposeful day. Thank you for listening to Your Purposeful Life today, and I'm your host, Adrian Starks. Download this podcast on any platform of your choice by going to our website, yourpurposeful.life. Join me on my social media channels and be a part of the Your Purposeful Life community. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that like button with a purpose. Let's help you shape your purpose your way.